My goodness, it's been a minute. How you doing?
Been way too long. I'm doing so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I don't know, like somehow I don't know, fall's a rebirth always for me. Weather starts to get a little bit better.
Mhm.
I got a bunch of races on the calendar, so yeah, life's good. How about you?
Yeah, about the same. And yeah, both of us have just been super busy with
Yeah,
a number of different things. And so it's been interesting that we just have not been able to connect even to do something we love doing, which is talk about triathlon.
exactly. So we're gonna try and get back at it this fall and winter and see if we can't keep going with this podcast. I'm looking forward to it.
So it was fun. You and I met last week, and we talked about some topics, and then we eventually settled on let's put some questions out. Let's put it out to the club. Say what questions do people have, and we did that type of episode early on, and it's been one of our top performing podcasts, oddly enough. So that's pretty neat. And so, yeah, you saw some of the questions on Facebook.
Yep. Yes. And there's lots of good questions. And for those of you that are listening to this one, the if you're not on the Las Vegas Triathlon Club, the Las Vegas Triathlon Club page is where we've been promoting this. And you can always ask questions about the Evidence-Based Triathlete podcast there as well if you want specific things answered.
Yeah, so and you can post questions there or direct message us, and that's how we came up with our topic tonight. Is someone direct messaged me and asked a really tough question that we're going to dive into, and sensitive question too, because it's about taking testosterone as a male, an older male, and trying to figure out the fine line between what's legal, what's not legal. How can you take testosterone legally? And we're going to talk about that. And I really appreciate that someone trusted us to one ask the question to us. Very sensitive because it's a tough question because we are really talking about long-term health issues, but some of the things that take care of our long-term health may actually move us out of the racing circle. And there may be a time that people need to decide between I've got to be healthy or I've got to race. And sometimes you can't have both.
Absolutely true. And it's funny, I ran into several triathletes just around town this year that aren't racing anymore. And you ask them, oh, I had this health issue I had to deal with. I'm planning to come back to it. And you're 100% right. Even like, we both have had our issues, right? And had to take time off because of crashes or illnesses or whatever. You got to get your health
Yeah.
straightened out first. So I think that, we're going to talk about that from a conceptually about testosterone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so John, let's hypothetically say I was considering this as an option. I think the first thing to do if you're considering this is once again look at it from a health perspective, but you need to know where you're at, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes we guess, oh, I think my testosterone is this. That would be like say, I think my white blood cell count is this. You don't know unless you get tested. There's also in the testing, so you can measure free testosterone, which is really common. Um, you could just measure total testosterone, and those numbers are important to kind of distinguish between because there's a lot of people out there that have good levels of testosterone, even older athletes, so well within normal ranges or even upper normal ranges, but they have low free testosterone. And if that's the case, then there's other things you need to look at. The first one is sex binding SB, sex hormone binding globulin. So how much of the testosterone is being held by another protein in the blood? So there's a bunch of things you need to do before you kind of go down the road of like, oh, I think I have low testosterone. Number one, I think get tested. What do you think about that, John?
No, I love it. And I should have also introduced that it's so fortunate that you actually teach this.
Yeah.
And you were actually, it's very timely that you said you were working on a presentation that had a lot of this information. So I think it's neat to recognize the expertise that you have in this space. My expertise is not in this space. I am a clean advocate. I do advocate for the clean athlete, and like you, and I really value health. And I think your first step is a good first step. I even go the next step is go to your physician don't go to your supplement store. Don't go to, someone else a clinic. Go to your physician, and you need to start having conversations about how to determine your testosterone level and then what that actually means.
Yeah, and I love you said go to your physician. Don't, in my opinion, don't go to a testosterone replacement clinic
Yeah.
because that they're trying to sell you that, right? So go to your general physician, tell them about your concerns, and if you start telling them your concerns, they should run some of these tests for you. Because the truth is you might be feeling not well or feeling like you're not recovering or whatever, and you've got good levels of testosterone. There's actually something else wrong with you. And if you go down the other route of just getting testosterone, maybe even black market testosterone, which is a thing as well, you might not pick up those underlying um, mechanisms and things that are going on with you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we should just recognize you cannot take testosterone and compete.
Right. Yeah.
And men or women taking testosterone, so it is against the rules. Now, other hormones, corticosteroids, you can take those out of competition, but testosterone's banned all the time. Do you want to talk a little bit about the process of maybe getting approved to use testosterone via USADA or what have you?
For sure. So I think the first thing to understand is that there's lots of drugs that are banned, like by the World Anti-Doping Agency, and then therefore USADA, therefore the World Triathlon Corporation or USA Triathlon. They're all basically under the similar umbrella. Just like the NCAA has got their drug testing policies and what's banned and what's not banned. So any of these drugs that are on these lists, you can't race with. And now you mentioned in competition, out of competition. Some drugs you can take out of competition. Like if you want to go to corticosteroid injection in your knee, you absolutely can take that out of competition. You actually can't do it in competition. Well, or like the day before a competition, it would show up in your, if you were to do a urine test, it would show up in that. So that being said, there are ways for people with legitimate medical concerns to actually get these drugs and actually use them in competition. Now, there's some that are never, like, I don't think cocaine is ever allowed in competition, no matter if you have, well, could you have a cocaine deficiency? I don't think so. But I'm trying to just add a little humor here, but testosterone is actually one that there are legitimate concerns around if you have significantly low testosterone. So the first one to think about is if you've had testicular cancer and you've had your testicles removed, you probably actually need exogenous testosterone just for your health and to live. And you could get a therapeutic use exemption. We'll talk about those in a little bit. There's also another disease process, hypogonadism. So just basically your testicles aren't producing testosterone or enough testosterone. Okay, so that one's a little bit trickier to get around because there are potentially things you could do to suppress it that are lifestyle things, and those would have to be addressed before you could get a therapeutic use exemption. So what's a therapeutic use exemption? You have to go to your doctor, and you'd have to have your doctor fill out some paperwork, basically saying that you have whatever you need the drug for, whether it's testosterone or albuterol or whatever. And usually this is going to have to be documented in the case of testosterone, documented throughout maybe several blood tests, and not just blood tests, but other examination findings. So it probably wouldn't be good enough to say you have low testosterone. They would probably look at like the downstream ramifications of low testosterone, like red blood cell count, once again, that sex hormone binding globulin, all these other things that would help basically they're going to try and build a case and then send it off to a lab, to the United States Anti-Doping Agency. There, they would receive it, and a panel of physicians would look at your physician's notes. And they may respond, this is what normally happens, they respond, we need more information. Not good enough. So then your physician's got to write more and say, okay, and in addition to this, we did this, this, and this, and this is what we found. And then it'll go back to the panel, and they'll either say, yes, we're going to give you a therapeutic use exemption, or no, we're not. John and I both did some reading and tried to figure out how many of these have been given out. There's no numbers on it because this is all private health stuff. I found an article on Slow Twitch about a guy that had testicular cancer and he got one. and rightfully so, right? Like if you don't produce any testosterone naturally, like if you want to basically live, you probably need to have exogenous testosterone. So that being said, we don't know how hard it is to get one. Anecdotally, I've talked to a physician about this, and they've said that they've done a few that were unsuccessful.
Hmm.
So, I also know in the MMA world, and this is from the newspaper, there had been a few people that had gotten therapeutic use exemptions for testosterone, but it was kind of a little bit shady how they went about it, but they did end up getting them. So whether you can get one or not, it's probably a difficult way to prospect. But if you truly need one because you have a disease process going on, you can actually go down the road. It might take a few months. And once again, that's if you want to compete. And that's going back to the health thing. If you have one of these things, you may not actually competing might not be the best thing for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was just going to go in that direction because I think that's great to differentiate between wanting to compete and take testosterone for a medical reason. And there may be a time where triathlon is not the sport or any sanctioned sport. Maybe it's just not healthy, and it's more important to have your health, and you can get some benefit from testosterone for your health. But maybe it doesn't meet the guidelines of getting a therapeutic use exemption. This goes for females in menopause too, who may be prescribed testosterone. But I think you've covered this nicely in that just being prescribed doesn't mean it's legal.
Exactly. And I think a lot of people can conflate those two things. Oh, I got it from my doctor. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you got it. It's still when you do your urine test at the end of the race, if they were to test you, you would test positive, and a doctor's prescription is not enough.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So John, let's talk a little bit about what testosterone is, because I think that you and I, being in sports medicine and exercise physiology, we have a pretty good understanding of testosterone, but I think that it gets, I don't know, there's a lot of misconceptions about what it is. So testosterone, first of all, it's a hormone,
Yep.
and it's a hormone that is once again mostly in males produced in the testes, in women produced, I think it's ovaries in women, and the role is in general, we think about the traditional role, we think about like muscle maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
So it definitely stimulates muscles to increase protein synthesis. So in the context of like triathlon, would help you with recovery. So you exercise, you break down your muscles. This would help you to rebuild your muscles faster. When you're young and you train, and you're not sore as long, and you rebound quicker. One of the reasons is because of higher levels of testosterone. But there's a few others that I wanted to talk about that are a little bit under the radar. So the next one is bone density and fracture prevention. So one of the things that happens, obviously, as we get older, our bone density goes down, both males and females, and we have an increased chance of actually having a fracture, including, in endurance sports, a stress fracture, but also falling off your bike and fracturing a bone.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting, John. I watched the Tour de France this summer, and these guys fall off their bike and they pop right back up, and I'm like, I fell just as hard as they fell. How come I had 17 broken bones and they didn't have any? Well, part of it is probably my bone density is not as good. The other one that's really interesting, I think, that really goes along with, actually, there's a couple more I really want to talk about, but that goes along with endurance sports, is actually red blood cell production. This is super important, right? Like we need red blood cells to carry oxygen and to remove carbon dioxide. And without good levels of red blood cells, you're going to struggle in endurance sports.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing's like, for example, we go up to altitude and you kind of feel that feeling of being out of breath. Well, that would be, you don't like, it's not like you have less red blood cells when you go up there. You just have less oxygen delivery when you go up there, and it makes you feel like you have less red blood cells. Mm-hmm. So I think that's an important thing too. So like, once again, like if I was to look at somebody's blood panel and I was to see they have low red blood cell levels, that might be an indicator, once again, maybe a tertiary indicator that you had lower testosterone. The one that we see a lot, John, in when we think people are on steroids is body composition. right? So when we see people that are excessively lean and have good muscle definition, especially as they get older, it raises the suspicions of us, because testosterone is really important for good body composition, not good, but advantageous body composition to racing triathlon.
Mm-hmm.
But just because somebody looks like that doesn't mean they're on testosterone either. It just, they could be, that's just their normal physiology. But you could see how someone might be tempted to do exogenous testosterone if we just knew those few things, like better recovery, better bone density, more red blood cells, and a more advantageous body comp. Those would all be, seen as a really advantageous things.
And it's a proven performance enhancer. It's very potent. And that's why the threshold for getting approval via therapeutic use exemption is very high, because it works. It does improve performance.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the downside, right? And so when we think about like being ostracized in a sport, there have been people in our sport that we know or have told other people that they're taking testosterone, and as soon as it gets out, it's like, well, they're cheaters. They're ostracized instantly, and if they're taking it illegally, they probably should be, right? If they have a therapeutic use exemption, this is the other thing. Some people with therapeutic use exemptions get ostracized as well. Mm-hmm. And so, like for example, like the guy with the testicular cancer, like he shouldn't be ostracized, right? Unless he's using super physiologic doses. And that's the other thing is, a lot of times when we think about like testosterone replacement therapy, I think people would be less concerned if people were just taking enough to be in the normal range. Mm-hmm. But oftentimes people are taking super physiologic doses, so way above normal range. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the normal range a little bit, because one of the things that you and I talked about in prepping for this was age-related decline of testosterone. Do you want to chat about that?
I would love to talk about that. So it's an interesting thing, right? So like statistically, 1% per year drop after 35. Mm-hmm. But that's on a population basis. Mm-hmm. There are many 50-year-olds, 60-year-olds that have significantly higher testosterone. And the thing I think that is often underappreciated is the decisions we make in our lifestyle have a direct influence on our testosterone. Mm-hmm. So I'll give you one that's really, really common, is if you have poor sleep, and because of choice, right? Like, hey, I got to wake up at 4:30 and train because I got, this, and this, and you're getting 6 hours of sleep a night every night, and you're hammering at training, you're going to have lower testosterone, right? It's not a medical thing. It's not like, well, I guess it is in some ways, but it's not like you have a disease. You're driving your testosterone down because of a lifestyle choice. Mm-hmm. I think drinking is another one, right? Like chronic alcohol use will also drive testosterone down. And there are several others that we'll get to, but I think that sometimes we look at, it's just a natural reduction. And I don't think that is always the case on an individual basis. Because John, I'm going to do it. I wasn't going to do it, but I'm going to give you some of my numbers. Okay. So this is true story stuff. About, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago, I had very low testosterone. And to the point where I was really concerned. And it's like, okay, well, I need to figure these things out. Like, why? And I was overtraining, underfueling, and undersleeping. I was doing all the things you could possibly do wrong, with the understanding that I needed to wake up early and train. I needed to not eat as much, trying to go lower carbohydrate, all of these things. And so I was like, okay, like I need to address this. And so I started addressing it by making lifestyle changes. Mm-hmm. And I'll just give you like my numbers. Like at the time, my free testosterone was like high 200s. Mm-hmm. And I'm so proud of myself because this summer I was in the 800s. Mm. And it was purely lifestyle changes. Now it happened, my 800, this is the highest I've ever done, was right after my 5-week vacation. So that I didn't have all like the work stresses. I didn't have and man, I ate a lot of food. I still trained a lot when I was on vacation, but I ate a lot of food, but I slept a lot too. Like sleeping in. We were in Spain. That's what you do. You sleep in. It's a thing. And I was so proud of myself. But there was a lot of just lifestyle things. So when I look back to 6 or 7 years ago, I contemplated like getting a therapeutic use exemption for testosterone because I'd been a few blood tests in a row that was really low, but I wasn't attuned to changing my lifestyle. Now the downside, John, and this is going to sound really horrible, is that's when I was probably racing the fastest I've raced in my life. So it's interesting right now, but I come to the approach of like, I need to be healthy rather than race fast. And so once again, taking things full circle, there are ways you can naturally increase your testosterone if, once again, you are an endurance athlete. And I think you should, once again, always look at those first.
So yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because lifestyle, those do matter. And you mentioned a few. How about strength training?
Well, strength training can increase your testosterone, especially if you're using like big muscle groups. They say like, squatting is one, but that seems to be a relatively transient, like only for a short amount of time, probably not enough to actually like move the dial.
Yeah.
Like once again, for like an hour, you might get a boost of testosterone. But if you're already for example, chronically underfueled, which tends to be more of the issue with testosterone, doing more exercise probably is not gonna move the needle long term for you.
How about diet? I know you looked into a lot of diet issues.
Yeah. So the presentation I did was on Wednesday night for the Nevada American Physical Therapy Association, and we're talking specifically about red S, which we've talked about before. When you look at this, number one reason people have low testosterone, in my opinion, as endurance athletes, is not getting enough energy and not getting enough particular carbohydrates. And probably the biggest change I made to like boost me was eating as much as I could while I was on the bike on my long rides, like just as many carbohydrates as I could get in. That's what I'm trying to do now. Sometimes like it's just like in racing, like you get to the point where you can't really bring in anymore. So I think that's a big one, especially when we're doing the longer bike rides. And we've talked about this before. I'm just eating candy. Like I'm not doing anything. Like I'm not spending tons of money on race supplements or anything like that. I've been eating the gummy Coke bottles recently. That's been my new flavor of choice.
I haven't tried those.
Yeah, they're pretty good, and it's a different flavor.
That's right.
So that, and then obviously we've talked about it before, but like, making sure to refuel after. Like you got a long hard or even a hard session. It doesn't have to be long. I did a hill session running on Wednesday night. It was hard. What I mean? I got home, I burned a lot of calories probably in that 45 minutes to an hour I was out running. So like the first thing is get home and refuel, and refuel with an actual purpose.
So let's talk a little bit about that. So the diet outside, off the bike, or outside of running or swimming, if you are eating during your swim. But what are some good foods? I've heard like avocados, nuts.
Yeah, those healthy fats are always going to be good for testosterone because there's actually a fat-based component. So hormones are built off of the backbones of cholesterol, but that gets deeper. But yes, healthy nuts. But honestly, John, I think the number one thing that if someone's to ask me, like one of the athletes I coach, is never restrict your food. If you feel like eating, eat.
Yeah.
Right now, healthier, like on the bike, candy is fine, but like the rest of the time, like just eating good, what we consider good, healthy foods. Yeah. And I don't even worry about like, especially when you're in big builds, like about like the amount of processed food it is, because sometimes it's just about getting calories, right? And if that means I'm eating more highly processed foods, then that's what I'm eating, and it's complete. Once again, it's completely fine, especially if this is what you're concerned about.
Yeah.
The other one I've actually been challenging a few athletes of mine to try, especially as a lot of people are doing big builds right now into big, fall racing is a big thing. Is I'm trying to see if they can gain weight. Like my challenge for you is in the next 2 months to gain 2 pounds.
Okay.
And allow them to.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, believe it or not, really hard to do when you're training hard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. That's true. Well, I like that idea though, because that is emphasizing the under eating. Now you mentioned reds.
Yep.
I agree that that is one of the big problems in sport in general, but endurance especially. Can you define reds and give people a sense of what that?
So what REDS is relative energy deficiency in sport. And basically it's when your total caloric need for the day is greater than what you're bringing in on a regular basis.
Are?
The easiest way. Now, short term and periodization of like being times, like I'll give you an example. Let's say you really thought that you needed to lose 10 pounds. Okay, like you kind of you quit the sport for a while or whatever, 20 pounds even. For a short amount of time, going in calorie deficit can actually help body composition changes.
Mm-hmm.
If you continue along that way, eventually your body will go into a starvation mode and start to basically take away the first thing it tends to take away is the reproductive ability. Right, you're not in a point where you should have kids when you're in long-term calorie deficit, so the testosterone goes away.
Mm-hmm.
In women, they lose their period. Right,
Mm-hmm.
so these are the first kind of outward signs, and then you go a little bit deeper. We get into like bone health, because long-term bone health is not as important. So you get
Yeah.
the stress fractures, and so it goes on and on and on. So was that good enough?
No, that's excellent. No, that's really good. And then the other one that you mentioned was stress management, in essence, or stress from work, but also training, trying to get the mind under control.
Yeah, it's super hard. Right, when you're always in this uh sympathetic drive, so stress response drive, you're increasing cortisol, high levels of cortisol, depressed testosterone. So I mean, there's lots of pieces here.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. It's such a there's so much going on with this issue because this is a balance between being healthy and enjoying the sport. And triathlon or whatever sport people are in, that should be bringing health to you, or that should be part of a healthy lifestyle. But there are things that happen in the sport that can cause us to be unhealthy, and then go down this path where all of a sudden we've got low T or what have you, and now we're struggling to compete or struggling to train even.
Yeah. Yeah. And honestly, like I said, like I did have low testosterone. It took me a while to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
Like it took me a while to figure it out. And it took me a while to figure out that I need to weigh 150 pounds, not 140.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It was something as simple as that. Like I was, always kind of happy when I was weighing like not happy the way I looked when I weighed 140,
Yeah.
but not necessarily happy with how I was feeling.
Yeah.
And and maybe I was faster because I weighed 10 pounds less, but I
Mm-hmm.
was not nearly as healthy. And I think that that's an important thing to also recognize.
No, I love it. And the fact is, if someone needs to go on testosterone, there are plenty of other activities you can do and still be active and
Yeah.
enjoy. It doesn't have to always be a sanctioned sport to compete in. There's lots of different options.
And honestly, like you said, there's plenty of things you can do. I would just say that like in general, if you're competing against other people,
Hmm.
there'll always be this stigma,
Yeah.
right? If you're just going out like I don't even know, like, and riding your bike, on your own, and you want to go do like 100 miles or whatever, and you want to go climb Mount Charleston, like that's a different story than competing against somebody else, especially in a sport like triathlon, where we do pay attention to the results, at least some people, right? And for once, if I finished sixth in a race and I know the podium is the top five, and I find out there's a person in front of me that was doing testosterone, I would be pretty upset about it.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I think rightfully so.
Yeah. And I agree. It is rightfully so because one of the reasons for having banned substances is you're trying to get away from who has the best pharmacist to be able to get you the best thing to be able to compete as best you can. And so, post behind me as your race is, you're your own biggest competition, and that's always our mindset. But I truly believe people need to be healthy. And if that means taking a banned substance, do it under the supervision of your doctor. And unfortunately, that would mean that you wouldn't be competing.
And that's okay, right? The other, the other philosophical
Right.
question I have for you, John, is this one, and this has come to my attention before. Is I'm not trying to win. I'm going to be like, I'm just trying to compete my first Ironman. I'm looking at a 14-hour time.
Yeah.
Is it okay?
Yeah,
Right.
this is the ethical dilemma, and should there even be more relaxed rules for age groupers versus professional triathletes? And I don't have the right answer for that. It's a tough one. If someone came up and said that to me, I would just tell them, well, the rules are this, and that's what we all try to play under.
Yeah, but it's a hard one, right? Like, especially they are enjoying the sport. This, once again, the sport's bringing them community and bringing them joy. But then I would always go back to, like, well, what else could we do? Like, have you tried this, and this? And maybe if you said, yes, I tried that, I cleaned up this, I'm doing this, and this is truly a medical issue, and I can't get a TUE or whatever, or I don't want to go down that road, but I'm a 14-hour Ironman finisher. I mean, I think that's an ethical dilemma.
It's a tough one. I mean, it's drawing the line between therapy and enhancement. It's hard. Yeah.
I kind of wish that, this is obviously my dream worlds of these big races where they would just say, like, hey, listen, like, if you're going to be doing this, just let us know you're doing it, and you're not eligible. You can't you can't get a world championship spot, and you can't get a podium. And the only people that need to know is the race organizers.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll still put you on the results page or whatever, but you're not eligible. Kind of like they do with the wetsuit, right? It's like, for those of you that don't know, there's certain temperatures where you can wear a wetsuit.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't get a world championship spot, and you can't get on the podium. I don't see anything wrong maybe with doing this especially for age groupers and therapy and banned drugs.
Yeah, yeah, and I think I like that idea, and I think it opens up the opportunity to have a discussion without stigma, but have a discussion with integrity still about lifestyle choices and therapeutic choices as well.
Yeah. I don't know if it'll ever happen. Maybe it will, because this topic keeps coming back up in triathlon around age group racing. And I mean, I probably have rarely go to a race and someone doesn't mention something about this.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and you and I both looked at the data about the frequency of doping in general, and it's really hard to get accurate numbers on that. I mean, some of the survey data that we both looked at was between 10 and 20% of participants, but that's self-reporting doping, and that's not necessarily a clear picture of what may really be going on.
What we really like to have happen is this, and I'll just say this once again, my dream scenario is next year at Kona, when there's men and women there, the day before they announce every finisher is going to be tested, and we see how many people don't finish.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah,
right. Because I guarantee you there'll be a bunch of people that didn't finish, and they would like, oh, my hamstring, oh, this, whatever. But I'm just telling you, there was I think we talked about this, that race, it was a bike race in Spain.
Mm-hmm.
The age group bike race in Spain, where they announced the day before that they were going to test all finishers, and like 30% of people didn't finish.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, like, I think that would be a way to, like, a really good way to do this. But they obviously have to stick to it and test everybody, which they're never going to do because it's too expensive. But I do think that we do have a problem in our sport, because even if there's, let's say, I don't know, 2 or 3 people, that's it in a race doing it, the thought is that there's more.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the people that are truly trying to be clean, we feel as, I don't know, like almost a sour taste in our mouth sometimes of,
mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
it's a tough topic, and because there is no clear picture about who is, it's not easy to say, oh, that person or that person, and yeah, sometimes the suspicion is just as bad as the reality, because it does take away from some of the fun of the sport, where you're just wondering, wait, who's doing what all standing on the podium. It's hard.
It's a real philosophical dilemma, like, this whole thought of like being on a podium, right? And once again, I know we've talked about this before, but I do think it's really interesting. So I could go to a race and finish, I don't know, on the podium, let's say in an Ironman, finish third.
Mm-hmm.
Two people were faster than me. And if one of them was taking testosterone, I would be upset, right? But I could have also just had 10 people just faster than me, like came from all over the world, raced against me. I finished 12th and I just got my ass handed to me. Sorry to swear, but right, like it's so weird. We compare ourselves all the time to the other people in our age group or in the race. And there's always way faster people out there than you. We're going to see it, we always see it at the 70.3 worlds, right? Like you see the amount of really, really, truly fast people out there. And it's just, I don't know. To me, it's this weird thing of like getting on a podium.
No, totally. And then, you go back and look at their bike splits and you start saying, oh, wait, who was drafting? Who was in a pack? And all that. It's really, because drafting is just, it's the same thing, if you will.
Yeah. I'm trying really hard in TED 2.0. I'm calling it TED 2.0 now. After my crash, of just thinking about like doing what I can do, and not worrying about if I finish 7th, I finish 10th, I finish 15th, whatever. It's just, did I have a good day? Did I do the best that I could do on the day? And the results are what they are, because once again, finish 7th. If those other 6 people don't show up that day, I would have won, but that's not, it has nothing to do with me.
No, the greatest opponent is yourself. I love it. Well, this has been really good. We covered a lot of ground. And we were worried. We were trying to shoot for a 30-minute window to talk about this, and we're already over. But this has been, I think, really informative. Thank you for sharing what you have learned and know about this area. And so it's been really helpful.
Oh, no, my pleasure. And, I didn't know if I was going to share my actual history myself. I think it's important that people recognize that, we go through stuff, and you're not the only one out there that goes through stuff.
Awesome. Well, hey, have a great weekend.
Yeah, you too.
Okay. Bye. All right. Thanks, everyone. And thank you for the question. That was awesome.